over, yeah.
Hey, cousin,
All
see if I can avoid breaking my leg this
Yeah, let's not do that. Let's not damage
year. I'll
ourselves.
avoid that.
All right.
Absolutely.
They're working really hard to call.
This conference will now be recorded.
Thank you. Good evening. I would like to welcome Tuesday, August 15th edition of the Honda City Council meeting and ask our city recorder, Phyllis Bowman, for the roll call, please.
Counselor Belt,
Here.
Counselor Carey,
Here.
Counselor Lopez is excused, Counselor McKeel,
Here.
Counselor Oberst,
Here.
Counselor Salinas Oliveros is excused, Mayor Coons.
I am present, and for the flag salute this evening, and Councilor Oberst, would you lead us in that, please?
To the
Flag of the United States of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we last met 2 weeks ago, August 1st. Those minutes are in our consent calendar. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve those?
I will put forth a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilor McKeel, for the motion, and Councilor Belts for the second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. That brings us to public comments. We have no one in the room to comment. Phyllis, were any comments submitted for council consideration?
There were not, Mayor Coons.
All right, thank you very much. That brings us to a presentation this evening, and again, I apologize profusely because we were supposed to get this a few months ago, and at the last minute, we didn't have a quorum to hold a meeting. So I am, and that's cool because now a lot of other stuff has happened, and we get the really cool updated report. So I'm actually excited about that. I can say we planned that. We did not. We have guests with us this evening, and Marty, do you want to introduce, or Susie?
Oh, actually, I think our panelists are welcome. You are welcome to introduce yourselves. I don't have any opening comments.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
So I'm Lyle Waters, Polk County Commissioner.
My name's Ed Chamberlain. I'm with David Evans and Associates.
My name is Kumar Sami. I'm with ODOT.
Seems really loud.
Pretty loud.
Working on sound.
Adjusting our audio a little bit here.
Okay. Do you want me to share the presentation?
I think we're ready.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Window. Let's see here. Okay. All right. Sanity check. Can everyone see my screen?
We can.
Okay, great. Let me see if I can do this in full screen. There we go. Press start.
Perfect.
Okay. My name is Kumar Ratnasamy. I'm the ODOT project for the 2251 project. Along with me today, I have Ed Chamberlain and Lyle Molhurst, the Polk County Commissioner. So I'm really happy that those two are able to visit in person. So I apologize that I can't make it there. Two young kids doesn't lend myself to a lot of time these days in the afternoons. All right. So a little bit about this project, or at least the purpose of the project. I came onto this project around 3 years ago, probably 2020. I was given a folder and they said, go to work. You know, when I looked at the project, there was 20 or 17 years of history at the time of this project, and I was trying to make sense of what had been done, what needed to be done, and you know where we had to move the project forward. So the crash data was a key part of identifying the project, but also in 2010 there was the Expressway Management Plan, which was worked together with Polk County to define what this road should look like in the future. And the Expressway Management Plan is a planning document. It has long-range planning goals for a stretch of highway, looks at all the issues and attempts to put together solutions or proposed projects to resolve the issues along the corridor. In this particular project, we are looking at improving safety and mobility, and specifically between Rick Riel Road and Doakes Ferry Road. That is where we are seeing the largest or the highest amount of crashes, and that's the place where we believe money, I guess funding would be spent, or at least a project would be really beneficial for that stretch of highway. As you can see in the diagram here, the predominant issues that we have on this corridor are kind of left turns. So people having to cross over 22 going down into Independence and down to Monmouth, making that left turn onto Highway 51. During peak hour, there's just a lot of traffic that runs east-west on Highway 22, which I'm sure is no surprise to most of you who use that road. Some of the other issues are the weaving and merging along Highway 22. So coming out from Independence from 51 out onto 22, and then people slowing down to go onto the gas stations, people on the side of the road. There's just a lot of movement that happens, and it's kind of unusual on a high-speed road to have all these accesses. And what I mean by accesses, I mean business accesses to residential property, people going on local roads. So you've got Doakes Ferry, 50th, 53rd, 55th, North and South Oak Road. So there's a lot happening in a really short stretch of road, and that just lends itself to, I guess, some of the crash history that we're seeing along this corridor. So really the purpose of this project is to improve safety and also improve mobility. And what I mean by mobility is people's ability to go from destination A to destination B without impediment. And so, you know, Salem being a fairly large city, and people going out to the coast, you know, it's a freight route, it's a tourist route, it's an agricultural route. You know, it says it's a growth route for Independence, for Monmouth, for Dallas. So there's just a lot of uses that people have on the Highway 22, and this stretch of road is kind of that last piece in the puzzle to be addressed. And I think maybe that's part of the reason why, you know, I guess some of the issues that have surrounded this project, like landslides, business accesses, access roads, interchanges. There's just a lot happening in this area from a project perspective. So technically, it's really challenging. And as we go through that presentation, I guess I'll hope to convey the challenges, but also how we'll hope to overcome some of these. Where we are in the process right now, so we're refining our interchange and supporting access road design. If we given this presentation in April like we originally intended, we probably would have presented only a little bit of information on the access road. We've done a lot more work on this, so I think it's a more complete, more exciting presentation, as your mayor alluded to. And right now we're also completing environmental research, and something to stipulate about this project, and I know it's not it's not something, it's something that I always have to caveat because I feel like we're going around this long path to development. We're only funded for design at this stage. And so on the diagram at the bottom, what you'll see is, we're in 2023 in between planning and environmental and preliminary design. What we're hoping to move in this phase is to work out, what is our overall alignment for the corridor? How much does it cost? What's our phasing? What's the plan for phases? How can we build it in small stages so we can get funding for it? And so part of the work, what we're doing, and I think is a really important part of the work, is to quantify what our design looks like. How much does it cost? And how can we build it in small chunks? And so that's the important work we're doing. I understand it's going to be a really expensive project, but some of the issues, I guess, the previous issues that I've identified is that, it's always been an aspirational project, something we'd like to do without really going into the legwork of doing what we're doing now. And so I think doing that now is going to put us in the best position forward to find that funding and quantify what that is. So we've got a couple of current design options. I'm going to give a quick overview of what they are, and then I'll hand it over to Ed, who's with you, to kind of go through that in a little bit of detail. There are two interchange options that we're looking at. A dog bone, which is kind of like a standard diamond interchange with roundabouts, and then the northwest loop, which is kind of what you would see. Well, it's exactly the same alignment or same interchange configuration at 99 and Rickreal. So people coming down, say to Monmouth, if they're coming out from, say, Dallas. And so the only difference, what you'll see is we, at the terminals of those two, the terminals of the interchange, at the Rickreal interchange, they use stop control. So you come to a stop and then you enter in on the highway. What we're proposing is to use roundabouts as those intersection control. The reasons we're looking at that is primarily because of the higher traffic volume that's experienced out there. Traffic volume that comes in off these access roads, and also some of the safety benefits that that are associated with roundabouts. And what we're not looking at just traffic right now. We're looking for traffic in 20 years' time. So that's the future horizon at which we look at this project. So right now, it probably would function well with just a stop control, but in the future, as traffic kind of increases through these interchanges, they start to break down. So what we're looking for, it might seem kind of overkill, but we're really looking at that 20-year horizon. How's this going to work long-term into the future? And then a little bit about the access roads. There's 4 access roads that we're considering. You'll see they're kind of laid out by quadrants, but we've kind of lumped the quadrants together, and they're quadrants around the interchange itself. Option 1 and 2 are on the north side of the interchange, and options 3 and 4 are on the south side of the interchange. I'm going to hand it over to Ed now to talk a little bit about these access roads in a bit more detail. Take it away, Ed.
Yep, thanks, Kumar. So this first one that I'll introduce is called the Dogbone Interchange. I'm trying to zoom in a little bit here.
Did you want me to zoom in, Ed?
I think that's zoomed in on our end. Did it not zoom in on your end?
Next slide is a close-up of just the dog bone. At least in our packet it is.
Okay, I'll go back to. Yeah, okay, next slide, Kumar. Okay, let's go there. I can go back if I need to. This is the Dogbone Interchange. It's called that because it kind of looks like that with the 2 roundabouts on the north side and the south side. It's pretty straightforward in its operation with an exit for the westbound direction and an entrance for the westbound, just on and off for each side. It has the overcrossing over 22 in the middle there. So if you're coming from Salem on the right side of the screen and you take the exit, you would go around the roundabout and head south across the highway, over the top of the highway, and then navigate through that second roundabout and head down towards Independence. The traffic volumes, of course, are pretty heavy from the Salem to Independence movement, either to or from, depending on the morning or the evening. That's actually one of the biggest safety issues in the corridor, of course, is that left turn there going towards Independence. The project sort of realigns Highway 22 around those curves there, so it's a little straighter. Your sight distance is a little better, but it doesn't necessarily add any new lanes to the project. It's not a capacity project, it's a safety project. That's about it, really, that I'll go over right there to start with. This is the loop interchange. Call that the loop because it has the westbound exit loop, just like the Rick Rial interchange has. So if you're coming from Salem, you'd take that loop and proceed south towards Independence without navigating that first roundabout, really. And then, of course, it has that entrance ramp on top of the loop that goes just in front of the Brunk House there. This interchange also realigns Highway 22 through the curves there. So it's all the same on Main Line. The traffic volumes are kind of heavy, and so some of the movements do have what you might consider sort of two lanes as it goes through the roundabout for the heavy movements to accommodate the heavy traffic generally going towards Independence or from Independence. Has a little bit larger footprint on the north side there because of the loop itself. So it's just a little bit bigger footprint, a little more impacts on that north side. South side's very similar. This is.
Oh, and let me ask you just.
Yeah.
You said that's a 2-lane loop coming out of that, or does it split into 2 lanes as it approaches the roundabout on the north side?
Yeah. Can you zoom in a couple clicks, Kumar, on that north side? Might be a little hard there, but to answer your question, yes. You have a single lane exit ramp. And then as you approach coming up towards the overpass, if you just continue on the loop, it's a single lane that just comes right on the bridge, and then a separate lane breaks off and goes towards the roundabout.
That will rejoin that southbound.
Technically, yes. Technically, yes, because that roundabout's connected to that southbound side.
So on top of that bridge, there are 2 lanes heading southbound.
Uh-huh.
So what's coming off of 22 and just having the free right turn will stay in that right-hand lane. Traffic coming off of 55th or the north frontage road will come through the center lane, and then you'll merge before you get to the lower roundabout.
Okay.
Well, actually, you don't have to merge. The 2 lanes do continue to the roundabout, and then after the roundabout, they merge before they head to Independence. So it is a 2-lane on the south side or southbound direction.
Just like the Rick Rial.
Right, sure.
Yep, exactly.
Right, yeah, that makes good sense. What sort of volume are we anticipating that'll come when you get into the access roads from the north? Just from the.
Yeah, from the north, it's in the ballpark of a 5,000 ADT, 20-year planning horizon. And that includes a pretty significant contribution of traffic coming from the Dokes Ferry direction.
Yeah.
Because for the length of the project, we'll, install some median barrier there, and the traffic that's largely on the highway today, some of that will be on the access road itself. The entrance at Dokes Ferry will just be an exit leaving the highway and not entering the highway there. And so a lot of that West Salem traffic that comes down and uses that Dokes Ferry connection to the highway will now be using the interchange, in addition to a lot of the business traffic along there or residential traffic. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we can come back to answer questions on the interchanges if you want, but now I'll segue to the access roads. The access roads are very important to the function of the interchange because they help restore that left turn function that folks will lose by putting a concrete barrier median in place. So this is the first option. It's on the north side. It's furthest away from the highway. The access road from the east goes up 52nd, short ways by the Pinnacle Theater, up 53rd, and then across on Astor Street. That is largely along existing roads. On the left side there, across from Astor Street, we show a new road that kind of goes along the edge of the north edge of the hazelnut field and the south edge of the vineyard there. Connects over to North Oak Grove Road and then proceeds west to serve the cemetery and the golf course. This is option 2 also on the north side of the interchange. Comes from the east, and right about 52nd, instead of going north, it actually goes south, kind of along the highway, kind of along that hillside there, and curves up and then connects to 55th. And then it lines up across the street from a new road that kind of cuts through that hazelnut orchard and then connects to the west to North Oak Grove Road and so forth towards the golf course. It's a little closer to the highway. So this is the option we kind of call the inner option on the north side. The previous one's kind of the outer option, if you will, a little bit longer outer direction travel.
And we have to assume that closer means cheaper, like not as expensive to go further out.
Could be.
Right?
Usually shorter is cheaper. There's other factors that come into account, but generally that would be true. Here's a quick cross section of what the road would look like. It's a pretty simple access road that could be a ODOT jurisdiction or it could be a county jurisdiction. We don't have that decision. We have not faced that decision yet, so we're kind of designing it where it could go either way in the future. But intended to be a rural road on that north side.
Now, there was a point in time where that road that runs parallel on the north side of 22 was crossing some unstable land, and there was consideration of that seismic or whatever the problem was. This seems to be running right through the middle of where that was. Has that been resolved?
It has not been resolved. It is probably still unstable. But what we've done in probably the last 6-7 years or so is
3 years.
Well, last 3 years, but also there was some geotech studies I was thinking that have gone on. There's a lot more known about those, and whereas in 2015, 2016, the project team sort of paused work because it's kind of scary. They didn't know what they were facing. I think they know more. We know more about it now, and we think it's a doable project. That doesn't mean it's going to be a cheap project going through a landslide area, but we're planning on it to be feasible. We have more study to do on that, but we're kind of approaching it with open eyes now, and we think there's a feasible way to do it. There's probably a lot of background on that. There used to be 3 projects out here. The county advanced that one for several years, trying to get through that landslide area, and ultimately they paused because of those issues. And now the project you see in front of you today is actually a combination of 3 previous projects into one, so that we kind of could marshal them forward together. This is option 3. We're switching over to the south side of the highway. This is kind of the inner option that's closest to the highway on the south side. On the east end there, coming from the Chevron, sort of hugs the new exit or the new entrance ramp there from the interchange, crosses over that McNary Creek alignment there, and then it connects up to what would be a new intersection with South Oak Grove Road, just north of the existing intersection today, just north of that pond that's out there, if you're familiar with the area. The road on the west kind of goes up South Oak Grove Road, which would be disconnected from the highway, and then it serves the properties to the west there, and it stops short of Rick Rial Road.
Where it crosses 51, that would just be a stop sign?
We're not sure yet. Preliminary traffic analysis shows a stop sign may not be the best solution because there's a pretty heavy volume on 51, and it might be hard for the traffic to get out, especially with the volumes coming from this new frontage road. So it could turn into something more than a stop sign, such as a roundabout or something else.
You know, right adjacent to the, I'm just thinking of the traffic flow going southbound on 51. Boy, there's a lot of it.
And they'll be probably coming pretty fast coming off that new interchange.
Yep.
Yeah, working on what that intersection looks like is probably something we will determine in the next year. This is a cross section that shows kind of the highway all the way across. As you can see, it's still 2 lanes each way, but you do see the addition of a concrete barrier in the middle of Oregon 22, as well as a concrete barrier separating the frontage road on the south side there with those green things on it. And it's got shoulders and a sidewalk in select locations, such as in front of Cafe 22 or other places where the pedestrian traffic would warrant it. On the north side, the very left of the drawing, you see the new multi-use path, which would also, or is proposed to be separated by a concrete barrier for safety, and also widened from 8 feet to 12 feet. So it's just kind of a concept there. This is the second option on the south side. We call it option 4. It's the one that's further away from the highway. Coming from the east, you pass in front of the chevron there, just like the other one. But then instead of proceeding by the interchange, you cut down through the farmer's field, kind of on the east side of McNary Creek there. Come along the old railroad grade there, cross Rick Rial Creek twice, and then you connect up to the existing South Oak Grove Road intersection. So right where it's at today, and then it goes to the west up South Oak Grove Road, and then to the end there, serving those properties just like the other one. So it's a little further away. It's also happens to go through the floodplain down in that zone, where to the very bottom of the drawing. So there's some hurdles to go through if we choose this option, and it kind of cuts through a really nice blueberry field down there as well. So
Yeah.
That's a bad thing.
that's bad.
Just got a time
Taking out
construction.
farmland.
As opposed to a hazelnut orchard that has filbert blight.
So this is connecting up on the left there. I guess you can see, this is trying to compare the access roads right next to each other. So on the left, you have a dog bone interchange with the 2 inner access road options. The one on the north would be option 2. The one on the south would be option 3. Compare that to the drawing on the right, which is also the dog bone, but it has the access roads that are further away from the interchange, just so you can kind of see them side by side to kind of see those differences. And on the very south end in the blue color, you can see the floodplain. So you can see how that the outer option on the south side goes through the floodplain, whereas the inner option there on the left kind of skirts in right before you get to the floodplain. This is a similar drawing for the northwest loop. So you can compare designs here. On the left, you've got the northwest loop interchange with the access roads that are furthest away, shown first. And then on the right side, you also have the northwest loop, but it just shows the access roads that are closer into the highway. So you can kind of get a sense of the scale of how far apart they are. We had an amazing public engagement event in early July, I guess it was, at the Polk County Fairgrounds. And over 200 people attended in person, which is the biggest open house we were aware of since COVID, which is really exciting to see that much interest from the community. I don't want to sit here and say everybody was happy-go-lucky about it. You know, it was a very real meeting. Some people were excited. Some people were, you know, had things to say because the impacts are real in some cases, right? And so that was what we were trying to do, is just be real with people and authentic and transparent with what was going on, what we got on the table. And to that extent, I think it was a great success. Some of the results that came out of the in-person open house as well as the online open house, we did those in parallel at the same time. You see some preferences come out. Here on the top two pie charts, you see a preference on the first one there, options 1 and 2. A strong preference for option 2, which is the closer in access road option. And then on the top right, in blue there, a strong preference for option 3, which is also the close in option. So in both cases, people elected or preferred the option that had the least out of direction travel. And then on the bottom pie chart, the interchange option, with the information presented that night and online, there was a preference for the dog bone at about a 2-to-1 ratio. Although in many cases, they are both very feasible and good performing options. So we really have two good choices in front of us.
So just to wrap up a little bit about our next steps. So at present, we're reviewing some of the feedback we've got from our public open house. We're completing the environmental research. Some of the research that we had ahead of us is some archaeological work. We have a very good handle on our historic resources. I think most of our environmental work is complete. There's just a little bit left to go. That's not to say that we've, that's the work ahead of NEPA, which is I guess the framework which our projects are kind of based on, at least transportation projects. And then right now we're analyzing if we're going to move 1 or 2 interchange forwards. We just had a meeting today. We are looking to make a decision on probably 1 of the 2 options plus the access roads. There's just some policy things that we're trying to work out internally to see if 1 of the options is feasible. And then we'll have a very real discussion as a project team to figure out what works. And I think 1 of the options which wasn't shown, at least to the public, but was discussed, and at least it was Commissioner Mordhorst's idea, was having the Northwest Loop connect up directly to 1 of the access roads, which would reduce a lot of which would reduce impacts to the community on 55th and reduce out of direction travel. And that seems to be at least the flavor of what the community wants. They want simplicity and they want to reduce out of direction travel. So those are the things that we're really working hard to try and make happen, as well as, reducing environmental impacts. As I said, we're going to put together a cost estimate once we have our preferred layout. And then 1 of the more interesting parts of project development, or at least on large projects, is we engage in a process called value engineering. Essentially what that means is we give our project to an independent team. They look at it and they break it apart and they see if we've missed something. So essentially we'll have our work checked by an independent team and they'll look to see if there's, any kind of things that we've missed, because, once you look at something for a really long time, you can tend to get tunnel vision. So essentially that will be a really interesting part where if they see they can save money on certain aspects, it's going to force us to look at each of those aspects that they identify and then incorporate that into the design. And then the next phase of the project, which is NEPA to DAP, and NEPA was the National Environmental Policy Act. DAP is our design acceptance package. And what that means essentially is right now we're working to identify that layout, and then we'll be moving that through to about a 30% design effort. And at that 30% design effort, we will basically go put it on ice until we're able to get funding. But essentially we'll be able to get a lot of the design and engineering work, which will then really be able to get us, I guess, put us in a position when we get the funding to move the design forward. So essentially we'll put it on ice. When we get the funding, we can then move DAP forward. Otherwise, it's no point going all through those iterative processes without that funding. So essentially, it's just a natural stopping point until we get funding to move the project forward. And it's importantly the stop point before we start acquiring people's property to then make the project move forward. Again, my name is Kumar Nasami. I'm the project manager. Got Ed and Lyle here. That's my number and email on the screen. If you scan this QR code, you'll get to our project webpage, and yeah, we'll open it up to questions from you guys if you have any.
Kumar, I might ask Lyle if he's got anything to add to either the public engagement work or the kind of the work together with the county and ODOT.
I kind of like to give you a little bit of the history. So you mentioned about the slide area. That's just west of Duxbury Road in that section area to there. The county is going to deliver that Duxbury realignment. We ran a geological study along with the state ODOT, and our two studies completely contrasted each other. One showed it could be mitigated, one said they couldn't. So in 2019, we got with ODOT and we challenged them, and we split the cost of a third study. And that study came back saying it was mitigatable. We need to do what they call a balanced cut. It's a very deep slide. It's the base of the hill already. With a balanced cut, we could actually deliver this project. So that's when it all started moving forward. It's been a lot of fun. Kumar and I, we met with Federal Highway Administration. We ran out of time for the project. We get an extension. So Polk County met with ODOT, Federal Highway Administration, seeing all the work we'd actually accomplished in 2 short years. They gave us that extension. That's what gets us today. David Evans Associates was hired on as a consulting firm to help design and oversee this project, which has been great. And I got to hand it to them and ODOT both for allowing Polk County, myself and our staff, to come into their staff meetings and work hand in hand. They actually look at us as a partner in this. And it's been an amazing experience. And you can see just by how far we've came within the last 3 years. We met with all of the businesses up and down the corridor there on north and south side, listening to what their requirements were, what kind of trucks, deliveries, shipments they have, how they receive them, how they need to get in, what the links. So we've actually, I should say, David Evans Associates, our engineers, have taken all those notes. So in these designs you see today in the frontage road and stuff, all of that has been considered. With all the residents and homeowners, there is a couple of houses that we're going to take out. They're aware of them. Most of them are understanding, and they've seen the wrecks. We just had 2 major wrecks in the last 5 weeks out there, head-ons, and there's been a couple other ones besides. It's not that severity. No fatals, which is excellent when you have a head-on doing 55, 60. But it just shows the need, and all the people that live there understand it. They're tired of seeing the carnage and actually hearing the sirens, and just to get in and out of their homes, the stories they tell us, to get across and turn left, most of them turn right, go down, and then double back around. So everybody agrees this needs to be done. So first time this started was in 2000, then 2010 was where it really got the Expressway Management Plan, designed it. And to get it today to where hopefully we can get this thing built. 2025, I'd love to have the DAP. That's our goal. We can get the design acceptance phase, then we can start chasing funding. And we all know that this is one area that really needs to be addressed and quickly. So But hats off to these two guys allowing us to be a part of it. And all of the public community outreach that they've been willing to do online and in person. I just can't say enough. It's been great. And any questions
Thank
for any
you.
three of us?
Other questions or comments? Councillor Oberst?
So just making sure that the function of this amazing project is clear. Right now, if I were headed west on 22 and I wanted to go to, say, Cafe 22, I'd make a left turn into that driveway while clutching my steering wheel and hoping for the best. Now, I would go past it, take the exit, either the northwest loop or the north roundabout, across the bridge, around the roundabout again, down the ramp, onto 22, onto the frontage road.
Frontage road.
So there's going to be no left turns off, or no right turns off the highway. It's all going to be off the frontage road. Okay.
Right.
And if I were eastbound and I wanted to play golf, I would take the exit and reverse that, south roundabout, north roundabout, access road. But if I wanted the access road, I might have to go way north to get the access road to come back down to the golf course, depending on which one you chose. Okay, that helps a lot. I'm curious about the comment that you got in public comment of multi-purpose path being used for nefarious purposes. And I wonder what you know about that. And then finally, I just want to throw out, as I look at this and think about it as a user, I have a strong preference for that northwest loop where I come off and I just continue south towards Independence instead of having to do 2 roundabouts. And it actually surprises me that it's so low a choice on your public comment time. There you go. That's all I've got. Thank you. This is I was amazed when the 9922 and what's the number on the highway going to Dallas,
51.
3 highways all at the same time. That was an amazing project. This is going to make that look like a piece of cake.
Yeah, I think the multi-use path being used for nefarious purposes, I think like what Ed was saying, it's those mixed messages that we got, from the bike community. It was like, make sure you design it well, make sure you speak with people who ride bikes. The other concern was, well, sometimes undesirables or sometimes people who, I guess people, I'm trying to find the right words here. I think it's people who experience houselessness. This could be an entrance for people to go into different communities that, they haven't had access to. And so I guess what we're concerned about is people using it and people using it safely. And that's where our energy is dedicated to. As part of a project of this magnitude and classification, we're obliged to improve the facilities out there for the people who use it. And I'm not a resident. I don't travel out there all that often, but when I do have seen it, I have seen people regularly use it. So I think it will be an overall beneficial experience for people who walk, and maybe people who don't know people who haven't used it, because some people don't like riding next to a highway. I can say I'm one of those people, and so it's just one of those things where people are going to have different opinions on it. And I guess to address your comment about the out of direction travel and going around roundabouts, it's going to be a big shift mentally to use these new facilities. But I think what you'll find is once they are in place, you'll be like, oh wow, I'm not experiencing anxiety crossing Highway 22, or I'm not having to make a risk, or I don't feel like I'm putting my life into the hands of the traffic. So I think it just takes that decision out of the process of driving and make it less stressful. And I think that's where the benefit will be. Yes, there will be increased out of direction travel, but at least you'll be safe. And that's the intent of the project, to make everyone who uses that road safe.
I'm a big fan of roundabouts, have been for 20 years. So I don't have a problem with them. I just think it might be nice to sort of slide past one of them.
Yeah, it's confusing, and it looks confusing on on a big map. But I think once in practice, I think people will find it comfortable. I think the roundabout going in at Cloud Corner at 99 and Cloud Corner, again, I think once that's in, I think people will see, oh wow, this is not a little dinky roundabout, and we can still keep moving. I think people are scared of what they don't know, and so once it's there, and I think once it's established, I think hopefully we'll win hearts and minds.
I'm just happy to say that if I were to have a grandchild to learn to drive, wouldn't have to go through the same experience my daughter did, because we lived off of Dokes Ferry and she went to high school in Independence. So I taught my child to drive on what we called the highway of death. And so this has been a long time coming. Councillor Carey.
Excellent work, really exciting stuff, and whatever we come out with is going to be good, not just better than what we have, but it's going to be good. I want to go back to the slide area thing, and I know that's paramount in your considerations as well, but I want to remind you of the problems on Highway 20, the Eddyville area, and that's been a continuing problem. And I drive South River Road on a regular basis. and what they thought was a fix on that 5 years ago is back to where it was. Mother Nature is a tough one to handle. But you guys are certified smart. You know how to deal with that stuff. Yeah, look at that. Look at that. But you'll figure that out. The objection that I have, or I guess the reticence that I have on this, is that there's no room for expansion. It doesn't seem that there'll be room for more lanes of traffic at any point when we get these hardwired access roads. And the inability to, perhaps on the short run, we're going to peel some of that east-west Highway 22 traffic off with the access roads, some of them, north side especially. I'm not sure people are discovering Polk County, and a lot of people move in this direction and will continue to. And whether or not this is going to have the capacity, because I could imagine a pinch point, throughout that whole corridor, and you can get off it, but you can't get through it. So, the ship has probably sailed on any opportunity for capacity, and I understand the safety aspect, but that's a caution to me.
So we had that same discussion today at our meeting.
I'm sure you did.
And when it comes to adding a third lane, I think I-5 or I-84 will probably be third lanes added before they ever consider adding third lanes to Highway 22. But even from the pinch point from Dokes Ferry going into Salem with those areas, and that's a worse slide area, there's no room to add extra lanes. So it wouldn't make sense to put 3 lanes out in that region. But it was discussed and looked at. I don't think there's anything in this project we haven't discussed or looked at.
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Councillor Belz.
We just need to get the commuters to use public transit.
I was just thinking, we need to expand the trolley route and we'll be
Yes,
good.
we do.
And Councilor Oberst, you mentioned there's some unsavory activities out there.
No, I said the way I saw this comment.
Yeah, the comment was made.
People were concerned that people would misuse the multi-use.
Unintended.
Yeah, I believe there used to be issues at the park right there at Dokes
William
Ferry.
Home Park, when we closed that, we pretty much cleaned most of that up. There has been some camps placed up the hill above it that we clean out periodically. But overall, I think everybody's feeling a lot safer. The word is the families that ride their bikes through there aren't so threatened. So it was a good move.
To your comment about transit, one of the parties that we met with was Chariots.
Good.
They had some involvement or feedback on, I think, our first open house. And so we had a one-on-one with them. And they highlighted that their master plan really is focused, I believe, on increased service to Independence, Monmouth, and Dallas. They didn't really see this corridor as a stopping point at this time. Could be someday in the future. But they did recognize that the improved operations on the highway and the increased safety would make it better to serve these outlying areas. They also advocated for bicycle and pedestrian facilities to get across the highway. So we got that feedback several months ago.
Yeah, in the past, there was significant conversation about how to turn the buses around, in essence. The same with van pools, when we tried to build van pools out this way, having a place that could safely stop to pick up riders anywhere along that corridor. And so there may be opportunities now with some of these side access roads. Sorry, former Chariots, 17.
I knew there was a connection there.
Yeah.
Transportation options.
Yeah, I ran the transportation options program, so I'm just want to make sure we always pitch bus, carpool, van pool, bike walk. Yeah.
All right, other questions or comments? And are you still taking public comment? Or is that all closed?
Kumar?
I'm always open to emails, so if anyone's got any opinion about any part of the project, then feel free to send me an email. So I'm always open to suggestions and ideas. So, as we narrow things down, obviously there's going to be less opportunity to influence the project. But if there's something specific that you have questions about, or as I said, I'm always open to taking different comments. So yeah.
You can always reach myself also. I'll be glad.
I heard a lot of folks who got the postcards that, were really excited about giving input. So I hope that increased awareness and participation as well.
Yeah, I think what we achieved in the open house was, I think, educating the complexity about this project. And, it's not always as easy as just drawing lines on a map, even though it seems like that's a lot of what we do. There's a lot of thought that goes into it, and there's a lot of rules and regulations that stipulate what we can and what we can't do. So I think educating people about some of those aspects was really helpful for us and helpful for other people.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you, all three of you, very much for coming, and I'll say
Good
coming
stuff.
back to give us this information. It's been very helpful. I know we get a lot of questions and concerns about it. So great to be really informed, and we'll be able to share the link to this meeting again with folks, and appreciate all three of you. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
All right, we do have another guest with us this evening, an opportunity to meet and hear about work being done by our Arts and Culture Commission. And Chair Susan Farley.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. It's good to be here. I'll just start off with a few things that have happened this past year. Through the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study, which is through the Americans for the Arts, the Commission spent most of last year conducting surveys. And the idea was to gather economic impact of spending by nonprofit arts and cultural events in our community. So the commissioners spent a great deal of time going to different events in partnership with Smith Fine Arts, Western Art Department, Central High School, and several other cultural events that happen throughout the year. So the economic impact study sends a strong signal that when we support the arts, we not only enhance our quality of life, but we invest in Oregon's economic well-being. Randy Cohen, who is the executive researcher in Washington, D.C. for the Americas for the Arts, will be visiting our city on November 7th. And he'll be talking about the national findings of this study, as well as our local data that's been collected. And we invite you to attend that important event and learn more about the economic impact in our community. Because these surveys were conducted all here just in Monmouth, we got all the feedback from our community members. So I think that's very important to hear what that data shows. On January 21st, the Commission partnered with the City Library for the theme art through books, and the community members of all ages were encouraged to enter their artwork for display. There was a great turnout and culminated with a People's Choice Awards and a ceremony on January 28th. On April 3rd, Phyllis Bowman and myself met via Zoom with Senator Deb Patterson's office to talk about the importance of arts and the commission that was in our community, and that we were one of the cities doing the arts and economic surveys. Unfortunately, we have not heard back from her office yet, but we are looking toward asking her or her representative to attend the November meeting when Randy Cohen comes from Washington, D.C., so she can hear some of the data that we found out. The July 4th Festival art theme this year was turning trash into treasure. There didn't seem to be much interest this year in the community art show. That event has been losing interest the last couple of years, and we had hoped that the theme this year would kind of ignite more interest, but it didn't quite do that. It wasn't as successful as we had hoped. So I think this event may need to be evaluated and maybe changes made to determine if that's going to continue or how that's going to look in the future. There were approximately 60 recycled artists that we contacted and encouraged to attend. There were about 20 new recycled artists that attended for the first time, and there probably would have been more, except it was the July 4th weekend. But that was very successful. And their feedback was quite positive. Many of them said they wanted to return next year. They had a great interest in that. They felt they were treated very well. So we felt very good about that. Coming on Saturday, October 7th, the commission is in partnership with the city library, and we've invited a well-known author, Barbara Sellers Young, and her book, Artists Activating Sustainability, The Oregon Story, is about the way in which arts within specific communities against the background of landscape of history reveal concepts of sustainability. And Dr. Sellers Young is a graduate of the University of Oregon with a BS in social science, an MS in dance, and a PhD in theater. She's extremely qualified, and she's a performance studies scholar who's taught and held academic administrative position in the US, Canada, England, Australia, and China. So we hope that you'll take the opportunity to hear this amazing author and speaker at the City Library on Saturday, October 7th at 2 p.m. There were 2 resignations from the commission, Judy Phipps and Sue Kunda. We have 2 replacements who've been appointed at this time, Nora Steed and Julie Jensu. And I shouldn't say first, but we haven't had an opportunity to meet or talk since the July 4th festival. So we'll be meeting this Thursday at a regular meeting time at 6:30. And at that time, we'll elect new officers and develop some strategic planning for next year's events. So I want to thank you all for your support and ask if you have any questions.
Anything for, yes, Councilor Belt.
I just want to thank you for all the work that you've done. I know you and I have chatted offline a number of times, and you've bounced ideas off of me. I love that. I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for raising the level of arts and culture within our community. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anything we can do as a council that would be more helpful to you?
There might be after we sit down and discuss what our planning would be for next year. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you could report back on that or get that back,
we'd be
because
happy to.
we'd be anxious to, get out of the way if nothing else. But I have an idea there's some things we can do to help.
We'd appreciate
But
that.
but we need to know what that would be.
You bet.
Well, maybe we can offer some support in strategic planning. You mentioned that. Maybe if we have somebody that can help them with that process. Because I know it's hard to kind of dive in and say, how do we do this? So
Good.
that's something you might
Yeah,
need.
that would be good. That would be helpful.
Speaking like facilitation.
Facilitating it, yes. Yeah, I think that might be helpful.
That might be something if you'd be interested in having more of a neutral facilitator or.
Yeah.
For your.
I'll bring it before the commission and see
Yeah.
what we think about it.
Yeah, I also want to echo, it's really, and every event that someone from the commission has attended, I obviously was involved in Manit Day last year, and they had a booth there, right? So being, again, a culture about the vibrancy and of all the art forms, literature, history, everything that you all have contributed to and sort of elevated has been really amazing. It's been a lot of fun to see this go from couldn't have a meeting because we didn't have a quorum,
Right.
to really being super active, visible members of our volunteer community and bringing Monmouth a lot of enrichment, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. I appreciate the comment. Thank you.
All right, I think that's it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have one other item on our business agenda tonight, and that looks like Susie Marston is here with us to talk about our pro tem judge list.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council. In your packets, I provided a memo concerning a list of pro tem judges for you to consider to approve. To give you a little background, the city charter establishes the office of municipal judge and then hires the judge and also approves the list of pro tem judges to serve as substitutes when the judge is not available. So Judge McCann, the current judge, was hired by the city in February 2003. And then the last time this list was updated was 10 years ago in January 2013. So the list that I provided with the memo was actually the names were provided by Judge McCann. And I gave a little history on how he knows them. Melissa Parker and Jeff Jorgensen are both defense attorneys who work in Salem, and Judge McCann knows both of them through his experience in working with them in Salem. And then Judge Clark serves as the municipal judge for the city of Dallas, and Judge Butterfield serves the city of Independence. So my recommendation to the council is to please approve the list of pro tem judges as presented.
Councilor Oberst?
I would simply love to move to approve the pro tem judge list as presented.
I will second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst for the motion and Councilor McKeel for the second. Any discussion? I'm looking at our city attorney and not seeing him blanch. So I think
Good folks.
we are in good hands. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And none opposed. So let's move forward with that. Thank you. And how
Thank you.
often do we recommend updating this, Susie? What would be a better term than every 10 years to review the list?
I would say it'd be a good practice to review it at least annually, just to make sure that the people on the list are still available and willing to serve. That would be my recommendation.
All right, can you take that for us? And I think we'd like to look at it. I would say at least every couple of years, as you say, making sure that we've got people who are around to serve. All right.
Yeah, right now, Melissa Parker, as I understand it, she's our only substitute. So it's good to add 3 more names to the list.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That brings us to our reports, and I have it's been a couple things going on, even though it's been a good summer time and seems like it should be quiet. We were able to break ground on the Western Oregon University Student Success Center. This will be a new building that will house many departments that are really dedicated to helping students once they've entered the university to continue to be successful. So tutoring and academic advising and sort of those support centers that are really needed will all be in one place. That place is will be on the site of the former building of the College of Education. And there are thousands, dare I say, of alums across the state of Oregon who felt very close to that building, who probably spent a good deal of their education in that building. So they have, there are a couple ways that they have planned to preserve some things in that building that I think are going to be really cool. And I'm just going to point out that Dr. Peters got to run the claw machine and knock out some windows with it and knock out some bricks with it. So just want to point that out.
Madam Mayor,
Now I
this
can
would
think
not
of
be a lingering sense of wishing you had had a chance to take a
I
bite out of
don't
City
know.
Hall with it.
Apparently, they have different insurance companies.
I wanted to see you on a tractor
I know.
personally.
Yeah, well,
It's been a really
Anyway.
long time, isn't it? I just-
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. We still had a good time. I also was able to attend this past weekend. The Oregon Mayor's Conference was held in the absolutely beautiful weather in Hood River. And some great sessions, really a lot of focus on issues of homelessness. And we had several sessions about that, talking sort of about legislative court decisions around that, how those are impacting us, really, and also sort of divided up by city size. So very small cities might be different problems and solutions than medium and large cities. So that was really good. I was also able to represent us at a session on put on by AARP about their age-friendly cities initiative. We will be, we have applied to become an age-friendly city. There are, I think, 11 or 12 cities in the state right now that have that designation. And we and the City of Independence are working towards that. So I was able to talk a little bit about the role of our senior and community center, our senior advisory board, our city staff, and really the deep partnership with Western Oregon University and the gerontology department there that will give us a very robust program, I think. And you'll be hearing more about that, but that was really cool. And they have a statewide conference that will be held on the campus of Western Oregon University this fall. So there'll be folks from all over the state learning more about age-friendly cities and what that means. So that was very good. The other big topic of conversation is revenue. We know about our friends in Dallas and Salem who are already sort of discussing what their issues are with budget shortfalls and how revenues have fallen short. And so there were several sessions on that. I think you'll be hearing a lot more conversation about the revenue structure that funds city services. Most cities in this state, property tax base does not even cover their police budgets. That portion of the general fund budget is not even covered by really the only revenue source most cities have. So I think that I'm sure Marty's been working through the same thing. And those of you who do attend the League of Oregon Cities meeting in October in Eugene will probably be also a very large topic of conversation. So looking forward to those. We have a few things coming up. And that includes town halls. Our state senator and state representative are holding town halls. Deb Patterson's will be on September 19th at 6 p.m. at Indy Commons. And she's also working on a business roundtable that she would like to hold in Monmouth Independence. And Representative Evans will be having his Polk County Town Halls. He's actually having his Monmouth City Town Hall will be on the night of our next council meeting, September 5th at Western Oregon University at 7 p.m. But really trying to talk about the last legislative session and what they anticipate for the upcoming short session. Those things are going on. Yes, Councilor.
Did you want to talk about the planning commission?
And so as we go to our reports of council representatives of boards and commissions, I will start off with a request for an appointment. We mentioned at our last meeting that we were interviewing a couple of people who had applied for the planning commission. We had selected 2 of those applicants for interviews. Councilor Oberst, Councilor Carey, and myself interviewed Rod Bach and Zach Spiegel. You had their information in a prior packet. And at this time, based on our really great lengthy interviews and discussions, I would like to ask for a motion to appoint Zach Spiegel to the opening on the Planning Commission.
So moved.
And a second for that.
Second.
Thank you, Councilor Oberst for the motion and Councilor Carey for the second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 And none opposed. Thank you. And Rod
I
Bach
would
was.
just like to say good candidates both. It was not an easy choice, but I feel like we got a good planning commissioner coming up. And as you
Yeah.
were about to say.
Yeah, and Rod Bach is very interested in applying for other things. We have set September 22nd as a deadline for applications for the budget committee. So that we will be able to review those in October. So again, if you've got new folks that are really interested in that, we are still taking applications for the budget committee for a couple of openings. So. And other reports of boards and commissions.
I'll talk about the planning commission that met on August 2nd, the night after our last meeting, and I prepped a little bit of that about what the topic was going to be, and what the commission approved was the siting of a food cart pod at the old Rogers Automotive, and there's a number of conditions, 12 conditions that went along with it that had to do with access and restroom facilities and parking and then some of the other things in order to comply, make sure they were going to comply with the conditions that are laid out in our development code for food cart pods. But people were generally quite excited about it, and I think that it's got the opportunity to be a nice little addition to the
Counselor, the city manager shows me we have a notice of appeal of that decision.
Oh, we have.
Probably hold off on any discussion of it since.
Oh, okay, but
yeah,
but I can report that it was
approved. Absolutely.
Okay,
yeah.
but
I
it's,
just wouldn't get into any of the details of it. Apparently, since there is an appeal, it's been filed.
oh, so well then there we go, and that's a nice little postscript to that. The other thing of note that if you have any recollection, about a year and a half ago, perhaps 2, there was a proposed car wash that was going to go in behind the Dairy Queen. Apparently that was delayed and different things, funding and others. That now has been withdrawn. That's no longer on the table. And then finally, for the Planning Commission, normally they would meet tomorrow night, but there is no agenda that they need to meet on, so they are done with the night. So are done with the month.
Right. Thank you. Any other boards or commissions? All right, and I will turn it over to our city manager for her report.
Mayor and Council, I have 2 items. Actually, I have 3. at the opening of the meeting, someone referenced the League of Oregon Cities Conference. That's planned for, it's in Eugene this year. It's from October 12th to 14th. And if you are interested in registering or attending, please feel welcome to do that. And if you want help with registration, you can ask our city recorder, Phyllis, to help with that. I have two other just brief reports. Each week, I think you know, I'm meeting with the builder and the architect for our new City Hall building, which continues to take shape. There's 3 notable events this week. I was able to walk through this morning and see that all of the concrete floor has been installed. There's drywall and paint and rooms and doors and windows being installed. So there's lots of interior and exterior finishes. The storefronts are going in. You'll see site work happening. So earth is going to start moving this week. And then you know that the replacement of our sidewalks on Main Street, the street trees, and also on Warren Street will come soon after that. And then I think that was the only thing I wanted to report about. But anyway, there's progress continuing. And the lead times on the electrical switchgear equipment have been holding for 15 months. So I don't have any news on that, except that those timelines are the same as they have been.
Although it was news that the YMCA dedicated their new Courtney Place, a veterans housing project in downtown Salem. They went ahead and dedicated it, even though they are looking at 5 more months for occupancy because of electrical meters.
Right. And from an event standpoint, in terms of ribbon cutting or dedication of our building, the plan is to have our building be completely functional, but for the electrical equipment. And so we could be looking at, this is the trade-off, right? Do we want to cut a ribbon on a building that we won't be occupying for another 6 weeks or so? Or would we rather do that when when people are moving in? I would take your advice about that, but we're still planning for the October, November timeframe to have a grand opening of our building.
Kind of dark that time of year. So
electricity is going to be important.
And with them kerosene lamps.
My only other item that I wanted to tell you about is a celebration. Chief Haynes and Lieutenant Olison attended the DPSST graduation of our officer, Justin Morales, last week. He finished the academy second in his class. So he did a great job, and we're happy to have him continue on with his field training now that he's out of the academy. Let's see, we've got Officer Tyler Combs. He's finishing his 14th week in the academy. So he's going to graduate in mid-September, a month from now. And also Rachel McBride, I think you know, has finished her field training opportunities, and she's out on the street as an officer on her own, those are all really great milestones for our new officers.
Right.
Saw her drive by.
Yes, hopefully you're seeing them, Rachel out there, or you're seeing them, they'll be out in twos training together. So.
And it's not because I saw a light in my rearview mirror.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's all I have.
I think also, just speaking of our fine police force, hearing so many positive comments about National Night Out and the great work that they do with our partners, City of Independence Police and our firefighters for that event. And it always happens on the first Tuesday in August. So I think Marty and I'm certainly in favor of us making sure we don't have a council conflict that night, and I assume most of us would like to see that as well. So
if you'd rather attend, we'll plan for that next year.
We'll build the
National Night
good.
Out, that is.
build the agenda to be able to attend.
Can we get Independent City Council to also attend, and we can do the water fight?
Thank you.
All right, and that brings us to council comments and announcements.
I was going to comment on the same thing, but either modifying our start time on that National Night Out or working around it somehow, perhaps having it, some sort of an event downtown, invite people downtown, perhaps on the plaza, the City Hall plaza.
Oh, yeah.
But, some sort of a thing, and maybe our council meeting, and if we do have one, it could begin at 8 or 7:30. And
Because in many communities, the neighborhood will do something. Here, it seems we just have this one event. It'd be nice to have a variety.
Well, they've chosen that because all 3 of the first responder like to do it
Of
together.
course.
And they think it
Sure.
actually shows some value to
It'd be
kids
great.
to see them all together. So having one site, I guess, is why they've chosen to do it that way. Plus, very nicely, Faith Lutheran Church has
Yes,
offered
has
their
offered,
space,
yes.
right? And the S-Car is very visible location. That's what I understand.
The other comment that I have is that, and that's not as up, but, I really think that we ought to contact or someone, we ought to do something about the old 76 lot, the main and 99. That is not compliant with our, with our vegetation, all of that. So I think we ought to ask the owner to clean that up. And
I will follow up with we're not we don't have a great two-way communication loop with the property owner, but I will follow up to make
Yeah.
sure that they're maintaining that property so that weeds are taken care of and access.
we are, and we're probably also negligent on not getting something to the owner of the property on Jackson and what is that? Knox, the abandoned two homes there. That's an annual deal. And we have gotten after those guys quite a bit. So I think we ought to get after the people that own the one in the visible street corner down, our main area of town.
I'll follow up.
Hate to be the
Anything
weed
else?
police.
Yes.
I just want to say something about the Valley League 12U team with the Central Youth Sports, something near and dear to my heart, girls playing softball. That team won the league championship with an undefeated season of 15-0. And we have coaches and players here in Monmouth. So
Yeah.
congratulations, girls and coaches.
Yep.
I still remember my softball days.
And her strong arm continues, as we saw in the cow pie. hunt.
The cow.
All right. Any other comments? Then I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.